I arrived at the base of the abandoned lighthouse just as the tide receded, leaving the jagged rocks slick with seaweed and the salt-heavy air clinging to my lungs. A stiff breeze carried the distant roar of waves, punctuated by the rasp of wind against the peeling white paint. My boots sank into wet sand, and every step echoed like a drumbeat against the hollow tower. The heavy oak door stood half ajar, its iron hinges corroded until even the faintest push sent a keening groan through the night. Inside, darkness swallowed my flashlight beam, broken only by the silver shimmer of moonlight spilling through broken windows. I tasted salt on my tongue and felt an unnatural chill wrap around my spine, as if the lighthouse itself exhaled a frosty breath. The wooden floorboards creaked under my weight, each protest a reminder of years of neglect. I set my recorder on a splintered bench, the red light blinking steadily in the gloom, and scent of old kerosene and damp stone rose to meet me, sharp and bittersweet. I pressed record and called into the dark, "If you can hear me, show yourself." Silence answered, thick as tar. Then, a soft susurration, a voice carried on the wind, so faint I thought it was my imagination. It whispered one word, mournful and urgent: "Remember." My heart jolted. I shifted the beam toward the spiral staircase rising before me. Its iron railing curled like a serpent into the black. There would be no turning back once I climbed those steps. I inhaled, grim and resolute, and placed my foot on the first stair. The whisper came again, louder, beckoning me upward into the unknown. Each step up the spiral staircase rang out like a sorrowful bell, the iron railing slick with condensation that turned my palm numb and sent a jolt of cold through my wrist. The taste of salt lingered on my tongue, mingling with a faint acrid tang. Ozone, or perhaps something fouled by decay. Somewhere above me a single lantern sputtered, its flame long since drowned. Yet I could feel its ghostly glow guiding me upward. My breath came in short bursts, fogging the narrow shaft, and I realized the damp air carried faint echoes of voices, soft murmurings that roused memories I couldn't place. Mid-ascent, I paused at a landing where the stone walls bulged inward, slick with creeping algae, and the floorboards gave under my weight with a lamenting creak. Leaning close, I traced a smudge on the wall, a child's handprint, blackened by soot or ink, fingers splayed against the damp stone like a warning. My heart stuttered. Whose hand had pressed there? And what had they seen? The whisper drifted again, this time distinct. "Follow the pulse." My pulse thundered in my ears, urging me on. I climbed higher. The staircase narrowed until my shoulders brushed the curved wall, and I felt the wind pick up, swirling around me with salt-sharp cold that bit through my jacket. The murmurs grew louder, fragments of laughter, distant sobs, a child's whimper. Yet when I stopped to listen, they faded into silence as if drawn back into the stone. My flashlight beam caught glimpses of discarded objects. A rusted oil can, a torn page from a yellowed journal, flakes of paint that scattered at my touch like brittle leaves. On each page, half-erased words hinted at a tragedy. Couldn't save her. Heard her cry. Promise broken. Guilt coiled in my chest. I remembered why I'd come. To record the lighthouse's last keeper's story. To uncover what had driven him mad. And maybe understand my own grief. At the final turn, the stairs opened into a circular chamber crowned by a fractured skylight. Moonlight slanted through the broken glass, dust motes dancing like silent phantoms in the beam. Beneath the skylight, the lantern gallery lay before me. Rows of empty hooks, each one a gaping socket where once glass globes held beacons for ships. The gallery floor was littered with shards of glass that crunched underfoot, and the rancid smell of kerosene still clung to the air, thick and cloying. In the center of the room stood a rusted frame, a tattered canvas stretched like a wounded sail. I stepped closer, drawn by the whisper's insistence, and saw it was a map of the coastline, inked with storm-torn lines and dotted with tiny crosses. One cross, smeared in haste, marked a jagged rock not far from the lighthouse. Beneath it, a single word scrawled in trembling hand: home. My throat tightened. The whisper came again, insistent. Home is lost. A sudden gust rattled the skylight, flinging a shard of glass that sliced the air with a high, keening note. The map tore free, sails downward in a gust of wind that seemed to rise from nowhere. I lunged to catch it, but the paper slipped through my fingers, unfurling across the gallery floor. Its final message revealed in my flashlight's beam: a sketch of a small girl's face, eyes wide with fear, and a whisper scrawled in the margin: "Don't leave me." My breath caught as the lantern hooks overhead swayed, though there was no breeze. I knew then the keeper's secret. He hadn't gone mad chasing storms. He'd chased a promise to keep someone safe, someone he'd lost to the sea. And now the lighthouse itself demanded the same devotion, or a sacrifice. I stood at the chamber's heart, where the whisper pulsed like a heartbeat, and felt the point of no return settle behind me. There was only one way forward: to answer the call, or become the next lost soul tangled in these ragged echoes. The map fluttered to rest against my boot. Its message burned into my mind. Home is lost. I straightened and edged toward a narrow hatch set into the floorboards, its rusted latch protesting with a high-pitched squeal that echoed in the silent gallery. Below, I sensed a hollow vastness, as if the lighthouse's heart lay hidden where no moonbeam reached. I pried it open and shone my flashlight down into a spiraling shaft of darkness, the air rising in a column of damp cold that tasted of brine and mildew. The whisper came again, closer now, a child's voice trembling: "Daddy, help me." I climbed down, each rung slick with salt and gloom, and the walls dripped above me as if weeping. My breath fogged in the beam's circle, and distant water dripped in a slow, relentless rhythm that matched the pounding in my chest. At the bottom, I found a low corridor lit by the pale glow of bioluminescent algae clinging to the stones, a ghostly green light that lent the passages an otherworldly hush. The corridor forked, and above each arch hung the faint shape of a lantern, gone cold long ago. I stepped toward the left, drawn by a lullaby humming beneath the algae's glow, a melody warped and distant, as if the stones themselves remembered a mother's song. At the corridor's end, a low door nearly disappeared into the wall. I pushed through, and the space beyond opened into a small chamber scented with kerosene and something else, powdered sugar like a child's nursery. The walls were lined with shelves holding battered tin toys, a wind-up soldier frozen mid-march, a porcelain doll whose cracked face turned to follow me. In the center, a wooden cradle swayed gently, though there was no breeze, its mobile of seagulls creaking in the hush. The lullaby rose to a clear note, and I realized it came from a battered music box perched on the cradle's edge. My hand shook as I lifted the lid. The tune stuttered to life, each note like a barely spoken plea. Within the box lay a faded photograph, a little girl, hair dark as storm clouds, clutching her father's hand beneath the lighthouse's beam. My chest tightened. The whisper, now urgent, urged me closer. "Remember me." As the cradle's gentle sway turned frantic, I understood that this chamber held the keeper's final hope and his unfulfilled promise. And I knew, with a cold certainty, that if I left without mending what was broken here, I would carry his loss, and hers, into the world forever. The music box's last note died, and the cradle stilled, but the chamber's air trembled with expectation, as though something just beyond my sight held its breath. I set the music box on a battered table and scanned the walls. Faded sketches traced the lighthouse's history. Storms battering its foundation, lanterns shattering like stars fallen to stone, and beside each ruin, a small figure reaching up with outstretched arms. The final drawing showed a child's hand lighting the very lanterns above, igniting their glow. Beneath it, a notation in spidery script. Only light can guide her home. I shivered, the chill settling in my bones, and realized I'd passed no lanterns on the descent, no source for flame. My flashlight trembled in my grip as I searched the shelves, finding at last an old oil lamp stained with rust and half empty of kerosene. Its wick was intact. Hope thumped in my chest. I filled the lamp from a battered canister on the floor, the liquid smelling of diesel and stale prayer, and struck a match against the stone edge. The tiny flame flared, brittle and needy. I leaned close, the heat stinging my fingertips, and lit the wick. The lamp's glow surged, casting long shadows that shivered like dark wings along the walls. A whisper flickered in my ear, soft as exhaled breath. "Thank you." I raised the lamp toward the ceiling hooks, but the hatch above me groaned, revealing a spiral of ladders ascending into blackness. The whisper became a chorus. "Up, up." My throat tightened as I felt the promise settle heavy on my heart. If I did this, I would cross the line. There would be no escaping back to my old life, a life free of longing and regret. I climbed again, the ladder cold and slick, each rung sending tremors through my spine. The air grew tighter, musty with the sea's salt and the lamp's acrid smoke. At the top, I emerged into the lantern gallery, its hooks empty and skeletal. I placed the lamp on a central hook, and when its light touched the nearest hook, a lantern flickered into existence. Glass panes intact, its chain humming with silent power. The other lanterns lit in sequence, each flame kindled by a memory I'd carried. My sister's laugh, her bright defiance in the wind, the way she reached for me even when I couldn't reach back. The gallery filled with pale gold, and I heard her voice clear and strong for the first time. "Well done, Daddy." My breath caught in a sob. The lantern closest to me glowed brightest and then dissolved into motes that drifted upward, pooling at the fractured skylight. The glass mended itself in soft ripples, sealing the sky with a perfect pane. Moonlight poured through, bathing the chamber in silver. I stood beneath the restored skylight, the lantern's glow mingling with moonbeams, and felt something within me shift, a weight lifting, a promise honored. The lighthouse's whispers faded to a gentle murmur, like waves ebbing against the shore. As the final lantern pulsed and steadied, I understood the truth. The keeper had remained here, bound by guilt, until someone brave enough to relight hope could set him and his child free. Below, the hatch clanged open. Fresh air, carrying the sharp scent of ozone and distant sea, beckoned me home. With lamp in hand and heart made lighter by forgiveness, I climbed down, leaving the lanterns blazing behind me, guiding any who might come with anxious hearts to find their own way back to the light. The hatch clanged shut behind me, and I emerged onto the rocky shore as dawn's first light bled across the horizon, pale and hesitant against the retreating storm. My boots crunched on seaweed-slick stones, each step a reminder that I had crossed a threshold, no longer just an observer, but a keeper of something fragile and eternal. The air tasted of salt and fresh rain, sharp in my throat, carrying the distant cry of gulls and the steady pulse of the sea. I ran my fingers along the oil lamp's handle. Its flame still burned, steady as a heartbeat, though not a breath of wind stirred. Behind me, the lighthouse towered against the pink sky, its lantern gallery aglow even in daylight. a silent beacon calling sailors and wandering souls home. I felt the weight of every lost memory I'd carried, now illuminated rather than drowned in my mind. The guilt I'd borne for years loosened with every breath I drew, replaced by a solemn promise to honor what I'd found here, to share its whispering truths. A breeze lifted strands of my hair, carrying with it the faintest echo of that child's voice, soft, triumphant. "Thank you, Daddy." I set the lamp on a boulder at the water's edge, watching as its light mingled with the dawn. The flame refused to go out, casting prisms of gold across the wet stones. I closed my eyes and let the sound of the sea fill me. The rhythmic surge of waves, the distant hum of the lighthouse lanterns, and in between, the whispered lullaby that would never fully fade. In that hush, I understood that memory is both anchor and sail. It tethers us to what we've lost and guides us toward what we must become. As I turned away, I felt my purpose shift. No longer merely a chronicler of haunted places, but a guardian of moments that might otherwise slip into oblivion. The morning sun warmed my face, and I realized the world outside these rocks had grown larger, richer with all I had reclaimed. With one last glance at the shining tower, I began to walk inland, ready to carry its gentle terror and its promise of redemption into the lives of those who needed its light most. The path ahead felt different under my feet, each blade of grass whispering secrets of the tide I had left behind. And I realized that I carried the lighthouse's light within me now, no longer confined to cold stone or rusted hooks, but alive in every breath I took. The memory of that child's plea and her father's steadfast vigil had reshaped my grief into purpose. To honor loss not by chasing it, but by illuminating its meaning for those still wandering in darkness. Every distant gull's cry, every ripple of wind through tall grasses, reminded me that the world brims with echoes. Some we must heed, others we must learn to release. I reached the crest of a dune and looked back at the tower, its lantern gallery still glimmering against the dawn, a silent promise that some losses can be transformed into guidance rather than chains. As I walked away, the lamp's flame flickered in my satchel, warm against my side, and I understood that memory is neither burden nor treasure alone, but the beacon that shapes who we become. The tremor of the earth, a soft, rolling pulse, matched the steady beat in my chest, and for the first time since I arrived, I felt no fear, only the hush of possibility. In the hush, I heard a faint whisper carried on the breeze, "Home." It was no longer a summons to the past, but an invitation to the life I would build from these reclaimed fragments of light. If the hush of the abandoned lighthouse stirred something in you, if you feel the weight of memories seeking to guide you rather than imprison you, then let this story be your lantern. Please light up that like button and subscribe to WhisperTales so we can continue exploring the quiet corners of our minds together.